There we go. Good.
Well,
Okay, perfect.
so everybody wants to know what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to secure our border as part of any effort to keep the government open. I want to keep the government open, and I want to close the border when it comes to illegal immigration. If this is not a crisis, this is not emergency, what would be? Here are the numbers. In August last month, 232,972 people came across the border illegally that we know of. That's a 365% increase since 2020. It's the 6th month in a row that we've crossed 200,000. We have 151 people we identified that were on the terrorist watch list. In FY22, we've had 2.4 million people come across the border illegally that we know of. Over 6 million since President Biden has been president. That's bigger than the state of South Carolina. This is a problem that we're going to address before we pass any permanent funding for the government. The House will insist upon it, and we're going to insist upon it. The supplemental sent over by President Biden made things worse, not better. This was his chance to work with us to fix the problem. What's in his supplemental? Not a dime for the things that really matter. As a matter of fact, in their supplemental, they didn't put any money for enforcement, detaining violent criminals, or fighting cartels. They allowed money for enforcement, the ICE money, to be reprogrammed to community residential facilities to help with the cost of housing illegal immigrants. Let me say that again. They had a chance to fix the problem. Their solution is to defund ICE and put more money into community facilities. They've just announced 460,000 Venezuelans will be given temporary protective status. I project in about 2 months we'll have a lot more Venezuelans. If you think it's just a bunch of Republicans complaining, you're wrong. This is the mayor of New York. September the 10th, just a few days ago, New York City will experience a financial tsunami. The migrant crisis will destroy New York City. Now here's the Biden answer. Leave them all in Texas. They have a remain in Texas policy. Well, Texas ain't going to accept that, I don't think. The National Guard's being called out in Massachusetts and New York. Why? Because Texas is not going to bear this burden by themselves. To our 2 senators from Texas, we've got your back. Your governor's doing the right thing. So we got a chance to fix this problem, and we're going to take advantage of it. There will be an effort to keep the government open, probably to November. And in November, we'll have a chance to do things more thorough. But I promise you this, there's not going to be a solution to keeping the government open and fully funded until there's a solution to our border crisis. To my Democratic friends, you've had a chance to do this and you've done nothing. I want to keep the government open, but I want to close the border to illegal immigration. So my colleagues on the Democratic side tweeted out, we need solutions, not grandstanding PR events. We've been around since the election. Name one bill that's being proposed in the Judiciary Committee to fix this problem. So here's our commitment to the American people. We're going to work to not only fund our government, keep the government open, deal with the real emergencies, but we're not going to allow the border to continue to be chaotic. We're going to bring solutions to the table, and there are solutions out there. If you don't change policy, you're not going to fix this. Why do we have so much illegal immigration? The Biden administration took every Trump policy that worked and replaced it with magnets for illegal immigration. We're going to shut those magnets down. With that, we'll go with Senator Cornyn.
Well, Senator Graham mentioned a number of numbers. Let me mention 3. 7 million border encounters since President Biden has become president. That includes people who literally turned themselves in because then they claimed amnesty knowing that they could exploit our broken asylum policies in order to permanently reside in the United States. But it also included 1.5 million gotaways. These are people evading law enforcement, and frankly, I think you can surmise they're probably up to no good. And it could be that maybe they're carrying some of the fentanyl that took the lives of 71,000 Americans last year alone. The second number, and I mentioned a few others, but the second number is 108,000. That's how many Americans died from drugs smuggled across the U.S.-Mexico border last year alone. That includes the 71,000 dead from fentanyl. And then there's a number 300,000. That's the number of unaccompanied children who were placed with sponsors in the United States. The New York Times did a great series of trying to find out what was happening to these children, and they documented the fact that in 85,000 phone calls to the sponsor 30 days after the child was placed with the sponsor, there was no answer. And unfortunately, they were also able to document forced labor. But the Biden administration has simply lost these children and does not consider it their responsibility. They can't tell you whether they're going to school. They can't tell you whether they're being exploited, whether they're being sex trafficked, whether they're being neglected. They just can't tell you. And frankly, they don't care. So to me, that's the message that the Biden administration has sent for the last almost 3 years now. They don't care. If they did care, they would do something about it. We're here to work with them, if they will work with us, to try to create a lawful, humane, and safe legal immigration system. That's what our country needs. That's what we do not have now.
Senator Cornyn mentioned the 85,000 children that the federal government, that HHS and the Office of Refugee Resettlement, that is there in HHS, they have lost these children. Now, I have the second letter that I have sent to Secretary Becerra asking for information on this. I asked about it in Finance Committee. I could not get an answer. He refused to answer the question, where are 85,000 children? Said he was not aware of that number and of these children being lost. So I sent him a letter. And the response I got was a non-response. So again, I'm asking for clarification on this. Senator Cornyn laid out for you how they have tried to follow on with these children. What we have found out is that they loosened the vetting requirements. Now think about this. There were requirements on vetting these sponsors. Well, that was taking too much time, just like they say DNA testing at the border takes too much time so that your certain children are not being trafficked. So they loosen these vetting standards. Then you have people that may not be qualified that are applying to be a sponsor so that children can be into labor gangs, into sex trafficking. But the issue is, all of this has come up with 85,000 children out of the 300,000 children that they cannot locate at this point in time. It is so important that we secure this border, that we make certain the American people know that we know who is coming into this country and their reason for coming, and that the unaccompanied alien children, the UACs, who come here are placed with someone who is going to actually take care of them and not use them for profit or for other motives.
We're facing an unmitigated disaster at our southern border. Illegal immigration is the worst in our nation's history, and it's indefensible. All of us have been down to the southern border. I spend a lot of time on our southern border. John Cornyn and I together brought 19 senators down to the border to see firsthand. You cannot see what is happening there and defend it. One of my recent trips to the border, a reporter asked me, said, aren't the policies of Democrats more compassionate, more humane than you mean Republicans? And I just started laughing. I said, you know who doesn't believe that anymore? Democrats. Where's Joe Biden? Where's Kamala Harris? Where's even a single Democrat senator? Where's AOC? I assume she still has her white pantsuit. She just can't be bothered to cry in front of the Biden cages. Because with Trump no longer in the White House, suddenly the suffering of those kids doesn't matter. You cannot see what is happening and defend it. And by the way, the reason Biden doesn't go to the border, the reason Kamala Harris and other Democrats don't go to the border, because if they did, y'all would follow. The press would follow. And their only defense, they cannot defend what they're doing. Their only defense is to cover it up. Karine Jean-Pierre stands at the White House podium and says, people are not just walking across the border. It's not happening. There's a technical legal term for what that is. That's called bullshit. It is an utter and complete lie. It is a deliberate lie. It is a known lie. And she is lying on behalf of the President of the United States in the White House. Now, why does she lie? She lies because she counts on the press not to call her out. Was there a PolitiFact, a pants on fire done on that? No. I've invited the White House press secretary, come with me to the southern border any day and pick any hour of the day. We'll go out in 1 hour, and I guarantee you we will encounter group after group after group. You want to know how bad it is? We're now seeing Democrat mayors, Democrat governors, mayors like Eric Adams, the Democrat in New York, who says illegal immigration is destroying New York City. That's with 110,000 illegal immigrants in New York City. If 110,000 is destroying New York City, what in the hell do you think 7.6 million is doing to the state of Texas and the other states along our southern border? Now, these Democrats who are saying this, they can't quite muster up the strength to put the blame where it lies, which is at the feet of Democrats who are doing this deliberately. Instead, Mayor Adams blames, quote, that madman down in Texas, by which he means Greg Abbott. I have to admit, I was kind of offended he wasn't referring to me. But he blames Greg Abbott for putting a few thousand illegal immigrants on buses and sending them to New York City. The person who caused this crisis, his name is Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. His home address is 16 blocks away. And by the way, if Eric Adams wants some help fixing this problem, he can pick up the phone and call someone else named Charles Schumer. He's a New York resident. I believe he lives in Manhattan. If the mayor doesn't have his number, we can give him Chuck Schumer's cell phone. Because Chuck Schumer is responsible, in the words of the New York mayor, for destroying New York City. Look, some of y'all may have seen when Alejandro Mayorkas testified in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. I asked him, I said, Mr. Secretary, how many migrants died last year crossing illegally? He said, I don't know. I have no idea. I said, of course you don't. The official numbers are 853, but you don't care about those dead bodies that appear in Texas every single day. I asked him how many children were brutalized by human traffickers. He said, I don't know. How many women were sexually assaulted? I don't know. How many people died of drug overdoses? As John Cornyn told you, it's more than 100,000. And you want to talk about something stunning? I put up a photograph with pictures of colored wristbands. I said, Mr. Secretary, what are these wristbands? And he said, I have no idea what they are. Now, look, any good lawyer will tell you, you don't ask a question you don't know the answer to. That was one answer that left me flabbergasted. Because just about every single illegal immigrant who crosses the border wears one of those wristbands. They're color-coded for how many thousands of dollars they owe the cartels. And if you stand on the banks of the Rio Grande River, you see hundreds or thousands of these wristbands. They're just like this. These are the wristbands picked up from the banks of the Rio Grande River. And the little boys, the teenagers who come in who owe thousands of dollars to the cartels, they're sent to every city in America, and they're working for the cartels to pay off those thousands of dollars. They're committing crimes in Washington, D.C., and New York, in every city in America. And if they don't pay off the cartels, their families will be murdered. And as bad as the boys have it, the girls have it even worse. There are literally thousands upon thousands of girls trapped in sex slavery to pay off their debts to the cartels. When I look at these are modern day leg irons. This is human slavery. And it is caused by the Democrats not giving a damn about the people being abused. And so I want to make a plea to the press. The reason the Democrats can do this, can look the other way, is because they're confident that the corporate media will not report on it, that they'll never have to answer questions about it. They'll never be confronted with the dead bodies, with the people being brutalized by these policies. So I want to make a plea to you. If you're not writing on it, if you're not running stories on it, if you're not telling what's happening, you are complicit in modern day slavery. This is indefensible. It's evil.
That's exactly right. Senator Graham, thank you for putting this together. Thank you for your leadership. One of the things that you touched on at the very beginning is that Democrats say we have no solutions. I guarantee you, if you take a look at this group up here, we have put forth solution after solution after solution. I mean, you look at H.R. 2 and what you're trying to move here in the Senate. You look at the work you've done. Guys, I would have never seen the border firsthand if this woman didn't know that I needed to see it immediately upon entering the United States Senate. I followed up with a trip with John Cornyn because they care. These people down there, Senator Blackburn would talk to them. She knew them. We walked through and we got to hear women tell us their story. And their stories are brutalizing. And to Senator Cruz's point, if you're not telling it, that's on you. Because when a woman sits there and she tells you not just about being raped, but how many times a day she's raped. When she tells you about having to lay in that bed while they come in and out and in and out, it's disgusting and it's despicable. Folks, you look at the number of people that have died at the border because Joe Biden has made it more and more enticing to come here. Make no mistake, this is a result of failed policies. We could fix this. We can't throw money at this and fix it. We have to actually change the policies. I looked in the eyes of CBP agents who said we're exhausted. We're not only having to be paper pushers, we're also trying to do what we did, what we took an oath of office to do, and that is protect this border. But when they tell you about finding small children who have drowned in that river or pulling a lifeless body of a woman who is pregnant with twins, it changes the way you think about what's happening. Drug cartels, guys, they have their tentacles all over this country. We need you to start telling that story. To Senator Cruz's point, they will tell you exactly how much they paid to get here. Then they'll tell you where they're going, what their job's going to be, and how much more they owe. Got it? And guess what? Just the other day in Alabama, a gentleman told me, if you will come back here with me in this neighborhood right behind you, you will see migrants who are here illegally, and they will tell you about the drug cartels coming around every other week to collect. Guys, that's not the American dream. That's an American nightmare. We know what policies work. President Trump had secured the border. We know what to do. We just have to have a leader who has the courage to do it. And I am so sick of Joe Biden lecturing us about the soul of America. Let me tell you, he needs to have the heart to actually listen to people. He needs to have the compassion to actually hear those stories, the willingness to work with people. And Joe Biden needs the courage to take decisive action. We are standing here ready to do this, and what he put forth in that supplemental is an absolute joke. It will only facilitate this crisis more and more every day. By the end of his tenure, we will have over 10 million people here, which would make that, by the way, if you put everybody in one place, the 11th largest state in the United States of America. Folks, this is out of control. We've got to do something. We would not allow this to happen in a third world country. We certainly should not allow it to happen in the United States of America.
And finally, we've seized enough fentanyl this fiscal year to kill everybody in the country. And ISIS smugglers are now getting people into the United States. We'll take questions, but finally, there's an opportunity to fix this, don't you think?
Yes.
We got to fund the government. We got to sit down and do what's right by our military. We got a lot of needs. This, to me, is at the top of the list. So, to my Democratic colleagues, this is an opportunity to fix this problem. Work with us.
Senator, when you say that you would insist on border provisions
Yeah.
in this government CR, are you saying you'd vote no on it in its current form?
The CR that gets us to November will probably be a smaller version of what we need. In November, whatever the time period, we're going to need some funding and some policy changes for the border, and that will give us about 6 weeks to work out a package.
So you're saying you're okay on it in the short term?
Well, I'll just speak for myself, yeah. Yeah.
So, sorry, just to clarify on that. So you're looking for border security on not just appropriations, but a CR. So are you willing to shut down the government if there's no border security in a CR?
What I'm saying is that we're not going to leave this issue unattended and unaddressed. The House is going to insist that there be border security fixes. I think we're all saying we agree with the House. Getting the government open until, let's say, November 17th is one exercise. It'd be a smaller exercise, but come November the 17th, whatever date they pick, I expect we'll have substantial fixes to a broken border.
And let me
do something in the CR on this, Senator Graham?
Don't know. Go ahead.
So let me suggest something also, which is y'all ask that same question of Democrats. And here's a simple question to ask. Chuck Schumer, are you willing to shut the government down in order to stop any effort to secure the border? Are you so committed to this chaos at the southern border that's destroying New York City that you're willing to shut the border down? And this is where they count on the press to ask questions. Why are Republicans shutting the border down? No, the Democrats could do something about it. They don't want to. And so I would encourage you to ask every single Democrat senator, are you willing to shut the government down in order to keep Joe Biden's open border? Because they'll be flabbergasted. They've never gotten questions like that from the press. And that's exactly where they are and what they're insisting on.
Hey, Senator Cruz, can I ask you, though, because that was up from Senator Graham, would you vote no on this current CR?
I already did vote no on this current CR. So yeah, so yes, I would.
Right, exactly. Senator Cruz, may I ask you really quickly about India? As you know, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau last week announced that Canada has credible information suggesting that
That's an important question, but we're going to stay focused on the southern border and immigration. So I'm happy to talk another time.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Republicans in the House had a CR plan that has border provisions involved in it. The only problem is they might not have the votes to get it passed within their own party.
Yeah.
Is there a need for them to get that bill passed so that you have some type of leverage when we get to negotiating time with the House and the Senate?
Well, look at it this way. This is an opportunity to do something about a problem that's way out of hand. To my Democratic colleagues, do not consider this a burden. Consider this an opportunity. I want to keep the government open. I think we'll have to do a supplemental in November if we can't pass the appropriation bills. I guess what the House is saying makes sense to me. There will be no legislation without strong border security. And if the Democrats will not work with us to fix the border, then I will be not only incredibly disappointed, they will accept the blame, which I think will lead to a wipeout in November of next year. So here's the message. I've worked on illegal immigration with Democrats for decades. I am not going to let this pass. I agree with the House, Republicans, that we should have strong border security measures. I'm looking to Senator Cruz and Cornyn to help us fashion that because they live this problem. Is it too much to ask of the Democrat president and the Democratic Senate Majority Leader to work with us and the House to start making down payments and put solutions on the table to fix a border that's leading to enough people, enough fentanyl coming in to kill everybody in the country, ISIS smugglers, and all the numbers you just heard?
Can the CR be a way to get leverage there to get those done?
Well, I'll leave that up to others.
Well, and let me say this, and we should wrap up, but some of y'all may know Brandon Judd. He's the head of the National Border Patrol Union. Brandon is a good friend. I've spent a lot of time talking with Brandon Judd about what the Border Patrol sees. And one of the interesting things Brandon says is he says they don't particularly need more money.
Right.
They don't particularly need legislation from Congress. What they need is a policy change. What caused this crisis was a decision by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and every Senate Democrat to embrace catch and release. What caused this crisis is when they apprehend people, they're given a court date, years in the future, they're let go, and the vast majority are never seen again. Joe Biden could solve this today, because the problem is he is brazenly defying federal law. That's what causes the problem. We can pass 10 bills out of Congress, but as long as we have a president who ignores the law and when people are apprehended lets them go, this crisis will get worse and worse and worse. And every Democrat in the Senate is complicit in that happening because they won't join together to hold this president accountable.
And let me add, parole. So I think during the Trump years, I think 7 people were allowed into the country through parole. The parole system for illegal immigration requires an individual assessment as to whether or not the circumstances are so dire you deserve to be paroled. They're pencil whipping. There's been 60,000 people granted parole. They're abusing the law as it's written. So Senator Cruz is dead right. You don't need another law to start fixing this. Just change your policies that led to chaos. But we will be working as Republicans to fix a broken border. The question is, will we be working by ourselves?
Thank you.
The first of many.